Are you ready to live ageless? Want to discover alternative health choices, cutting-edge nutrition, and fitness for the entire family? Welcome to Highway to Health Show with your host, Dr. E, the Stem Cell Guy, where Dr. E helps you live ageless. And now, here's your host, Dr. E.
Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Highway to Health Show. Joining us today is Dr. Mark Hernandez. And everything that we're going to be talking about is very, very interesting stuff. But before I start rambling about why I wanted to have Mark on the show, let's do the first things first. So Mark, why don't you say hi to our listeners and share a little bit more about your own health journey?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day, evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Thanks for being with us, because I know there's a lot of things you could be doing with your time right now. So thanks for being with us. My own journey with health, it kind of has got going into what I'm doing now with energy medicine as a holistic practitioner, kind of started out in my professional life. For many years, I taught as a college professor, Hispanic studies, for 20 plus years, and there were some unusual things going on with my professional life. So I picked up the phone, called my brother. He's a doctor of integrative medicine here in Texas. Anyway, I told him what was going on. He suggested I work with an energy healer out in New Mexico. At the time, I was living and working in Boston, and this was 2007. So I worked with her a couple sessions over 2 months, and when nothing had changed for a long time in the professional patterns, things started to move. So that got my attention. So from there, I started trainings and certification in different forms of energy medicine. Also, directly with my health. In my family, there's a long tendency to have issues with type 2 diabetes, blood sugar issues. And actually, at least for me, what kind of was the catalyst for that was I was in a stressful work environment at the time and found myself in the hospital one night back in 2002. So also that's been another piece of maintaining my health for that and other things is using, all the tools available that serve me, like supplements, energy medicine, and just kind of doing the basics that, getting sleep, exercise, and all that.
So can you share with us a little bit, kind of like a crash course on what energy medicine really is? And I'm very interested in your point of view, coming from someone whose siblings are in the traditionally Western medical training. You've got one or two siblings who are doctors, right?
Yeah, actually, both had they're Western trained medical doctors, so they have MD degrees. But over the years, for example, this brother I called back in 2007, he's been doing his own integrative medical practice for 25 plus years now. And so, he's a medical doctor. He was board certified in emergency room medicine, internal medicine, but he discovered that picture was incomplete many years ago. And so I've kind of been around that for a long time. And my other sister is a physical medicine and rehabilitation doctor. And she also recognizes, the importance of doing all the traditional therapy and all that, but often there's an energetic piece too. Anyway, that's kind of how I got into with that. But I'm sorry, could you ask your question again?
Of course. So what can you just share with us what is, in very simple terms, what is energy medicine?
Energy medicine is an umbrella term that refers to a series of practices, modalities, techniques in which a practitioner or a medical professional or a professional looks at the invisible energy field of people, animals, and spaces, and then identifies and releases non-beneficial energies that are locking into place people's stuff. All of us, all sentient beings, we have our physical body, which in many ways looks very solid, and we also have an energy body, which is like the blueprint for our physical body. In energy medicine, like I said, energy medicine is going to look at that energetic blueprint, and as I said just a minute ago, identify and release non-beneficial energies locking in place. Now, some people work with the subtle energy fields, those invisible energy fields, through maybe body work. Okay, that's one form of energy medicine, such as chiropractic care, acupuncture, massage. Okay, those are all working with the subtle energy systems through the physical body, obviously in the case of the chiro with the spine and those related things. In my case, I'm working purely with the energy field. So I have intuitive gifts and training just to read that. So in my sessions, in my main take on energy medicine, I'm not touching anything. I'm just reading the field and clearing things. So energy medicine, why it's important, because often when we experience pain or discomfort in the body, these things started many earlier period of time in the energy body. Things get stuck, and over time, not always, can show up in the physical body as pain, discomfort, or dis-ease, imbalances in the energy field. So energy medicine seeks to rebalance, reharmonize the energy field. And the idea is that over time, sometimes immediately or sometimes over time, that will improve the health and well-being of people.
I see. That's quite interesting. And one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you, having like I said, siblings who are medical doctors, is because in our field and as a physician, I know that when I'm talking to other physicians about this, and if somebody brings this up or a patient brings this up, it's very easy and very common to just simply dismiss them as woo-woo. So what do you say to these kind of things? Like, you having siblings who are traditionally trained doctors, how do you think they overcame that very almost natural impulse to dismiss all of these things that can't be seen, can't be tested? There's not a blood test that will, diagnose your energy. So how do you approach these kind of people?
So I would say I always ask people just to be open-minded. I said it's great to be skeptical about everything because there are things out there that aren't legit. So I always tell people I can work with you. At least listen, keep an open mind. If they have something on their plate, and I always tell people the people that are going to come see me, I always tell people always go for the low-hanging fruit. Okay, so if let's say someone has migraine headaches and an essential oil will do the trick for them, start there, okay? And keep going for the low-hanging fruit. The people that ultimately wind up booking consultation with me, they've done all the low-hanging fruit, the things that work for 90 to 95% of the people, and they still have their issue. So I said, again, you've had your issue for a long time. You're open-minded. Let me work with you. Let's do a session, often 30 minutes. And you'll know if you're better or not, and you always decide. I always say it's about results. Again, do the low-hanging fruit, do the quote-unquote more simple solutions that work, and then if you're stuck, come book a session with me, and I always tell them it's about results. So it really requires them at least to be open-minded, at least willing. Like I said, I can work with you if you're highly skeptical, but you can leave the door just a little bit cracked. I can work with that. Now, if you're going to cement it shut and put 1,000 pounds of cement, I won't be able to help you. Okay, so save your time and money. I won't be able to help you if that's your mindset.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you, because a lot of the times we have to stop trying to convince people. I see that a lot of different professionals in the health fields in general, we have this tendency to, because we're so passionate about what we do, to try to convince other people that no, really, it does work. And so on. And for instance, in my case, in regenerative medicine and with stem cell therapy, we've seen this over and over. And of course, there's some very concrete examples in which, it definitely works. And in cases in which, this is not the right approach, correct? But for everyone else who's in between, who's in the middle, because we really just facilitate healing. And it is the person who has to actually walk the walk and walk across that door and do the work. We need to identify who's willing to do that and who's just saying, you know what, okay, yeah, I'll pay you. I don't believe this is going to work, but I'll pay you and you fix me. It's like, you know what, that's not even going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the people, like I said, there, as you know from your own work, there are many variables in quote unquote healing. And I like to add, with my work, as I'm doing the work, I'm always connected with God, source, creator, the universe, however people want to see it. And I always tell people that's where the healing comes from. I'm going to be a conduit, hold the space. It's ultimately between you, God, source, creator, and you, the healing. But I've done my own work to be a clear channel to facilitate that. And I just want to reiterate your point that people have a big role in their healings. Their belief systems matter. Often there's subconscious belief that kind of get in the way. Sometimes that's the piece I have to work with, and I just get intuitive information. We need to work with your blocks to healing. Sometimes the changes happen immediately. Sometimes they take time.
Exactly. Now, there's something very interesting that I definitely want to know about, and this is part of what you and I discussed a little bit at the beginning, and the information that we've exchanged before. But what are the emotion code and the body code? What do you refer to when you use these terms?
Yeah. So the emotion code is a holistic healing tool in which the practitioner uses his or her intuition and an emotion code chart to identify and release negative trapped emotions that are locking into place a health or well-being issue. The emotion code was created by Dr. Bradley Nelson. Dr. Nelson is a holistic chiropractor, medical intuitive, and is 25 plus years in a brick and mortar practice out in California. He discovered he would often do the chiropractic adjustments, with the spine to his patients. And often their things kept coming back over and over again. And he had to do the same adjustments. So he said, what am I missing? There's something missing here. Why do I have to do the same adjustments over and over again? In 2007, he received a divine download that basically said, identify and release people's emotional baggage, negative trapped emotions, and the corrections will hold better. Just to give your listeners a sense, negative trapped emotions such as anger, grief, resentment, love unreceived, there are over 60 official ones in the emotion code chart. So these emotions could have been trapped 2 days ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago. You can come into this world with inherited trapped emotions. If that's a piece locking into place a health or well-being issue, the practitioner can identify and release like that. So in 2007, Dr. Nelson wrote and published the book called The Emotion Code, which teaches everyone how to identify and release emotional baggage. Okay. 2019, May 7th of 2019, he released the second edition of the Emotion Code, which is a little bit expanded, more, updated stories, a little bit updated. And Tony Robbins wrote the foreword. So I think it's going to get even more press. So that was 2007. Emotion Code, a big breakthrough. 2009, Dr. Nelson got a second divine download saying, okay, there's emotion code's a big step forward. It helps with probably 85% of people, but there's more. So in 2009, he got a second divine download, and that became the body code. Okay, so the body code includes everything of the emotion code, all the negative trapped emotions, but also other sources of imbalances, 6 major categories. The 2 biggest are energies, other types of energies besides all the emotional stuff, such as offensive energies from spiritual medicine. By that, in a nutshell, I mean like curses, entities, saboteur energies, ghosts, those types of things more from the spiritual realm that often I found as a practitioner, people really, really stuck in a pattern. You identify and release those, changes show up quickly. And the other big category of the 6 are toxicity, cell phone radiation, Wi-Fi, medications, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the body code. So it's a holistic healing system, identify and release non-beneficial energies, locking into place the stuff.
What do you mean when you refer to release? So for somebody who's not familiar with all of these different healing techniques, when you say, well, you identify and you release them, what really does that mean?
Yeah. So, okay. So, as I'm connected with the client, I have his or her permission to work with the energy field, connect with God source creator. In my case, I just have like an inner knowing what's going on. Boom. I know. And so as I'm doing like the session, like a body code session, there's a system on my iPad, okay, that serves as a framework, but also I'm getting a lot of intuitive information. So I'm asking the body, scanning the charts and said, boom, go here. So let's say it's a toxicity of cell phone radiation. Okay, so I get it. I'll ask the body, do we need to know something more about that? Usually it's not, occasionally we do, and I'll dig deeper real quick. So when I identify it, you'll see me in a session doing a release or on videos where I do a gesture with my hand. I'm going 1, 2, 3. When I'm doing that, that's the equivalent, kind of a shortcut for running a magnet over the governing meridian. The governing meridian in the acupuncture system starts at the top of the lip, goes up your nose, all the way over your forehead, and all the way down your spine. Okay, so the chiropractors are often working with the governing meridian. So the original protocol in the emotion code in 2007 was to swipe a magnet just 3 times over the head. Through intention, that energy will release. As I'm doing it, sometimes the client feels it, other times they don't, and I know it's gone. So that's what I mean by release.
I see. And in your experience, what are the most common, if there's any, emotions that people tend to trap?
Yeah. Anger. I see anger quite a bit in my sessions. Grief. I've had clients, often they'll come in for other stuff, even like their businesses are kind of lagging. They're experienced business people, 30 years, and all of a sudden their sales go flat for 3 months for no logical reason. Often there can be a component of grief in their lives of a sibling that passed. They've never completed that grief. You clear that, their business gets better. Anger, grief, love unreceived. I see a lot of people with heartbreaks. Okay, that was another piece of the emotion code. Another contribution of the emotion code. Segueing back to that is Dr. Nelson coined the term heart wall. So it's when people get their heart broken, the subconscious mind will often build a wall of negative trapped emotions around the heart to protect it from getting hurt again. But as a result, people are kind of always going through life, kind of like, as I say, behind a pane of glass. Okay, they're there, but not completely. Heartaches and heartbreaks are very, very common. 92% of people in the world have a heart wall. Okay, so those are some of the most common things I see people. So people's often, they're experiencing quote unquote physical pain, but it's often tied to unprocessed negative emotion.
That's interesting. Now, talking about heartache and these heart walls that you mentioned, the thing to note here is that most people will think about a heartbreak in terms of a relationship, right? And they will, or a loving relationship, a partner, a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, anything like that. But in reality, this can extend to pretty much any kind of relationship that you can have where you are, you're exposing yourself to somebody else. Is this correct?
Yeah, even in professional situations, people can kind of go through a grief and heartbreak from some type of maybe organization they were involved with that didn't work out. They can carry that for years. Okay, I've worked with people like even in their 30s. They're having an issue present. They'll track up to a breakup when they were 16. Okay, is that always the case? No, but it's not uncommon. And all of us think we've processed that. We're over that. And on many levels we are, but there's sometimes that little last piece that's contributing to new sets of issues.
And that brings me to another question that I really wanted you to talk to our listeners about, which is strengthening these relationships. So can you share with us what is the relationship between the body code and our interpersonal relationships?
Yeah. So the main premise is that everything is energy. Okay. Our health and wellness, our relationships, our money, finances. So everything's energy. So that's my main premise. And so whatever their issue, let's say it's a person that always dates the same type of people and the relationship ends the same, okay? Patterns are running in their relationship. They're always being drawn to a certain type of people with narcissistic character, whatever it is, okay? So when they tell me what's going on, I'll always ask them to rate it. 0 means no issue. 10 is issue to the max. If they're seeing me, it's usually 8 or higher. So how it works is when they tell me what's going on, it pulls up the kind of subtle energetic structure for that person, okay? It's going to be different for each person. Someone that's repeating the same pattern, it's going to be different for Joan and for Julie, okay? Or for Mark. And so it's energy, and then using that as an entry point to the energy field, the body will tell me using my intuition, my connection to God, Source, Creator, and the body code mind maps as a entry point. It'll take me to what is locking in place their relationship issue, and I clear it. And again, often, so after I complete, I'll say, okay, feel into your body. Do you feel the same or different? I always tell people, get out of your head space, kind of take the elevator down to your heart space, And often each person's experience will be unique, but often they'll say, oh, I feel lighter in the heart space. I feel like I can breathe. Or I just feel like I have a more expansive view of the world. Or sometimes they say, oh, the room's brighter now.
Now, is it also important then to make and to nurture and to maintain these healthy relationships, or is the importance just on making sure that you don't have any of these trapped feelings, trapped emotions, trapped heartache, or is it really about no, you need to continue making new relationships, and it also makes you stronger when you nurture those same relationships?
Absolutely. So what we do on the physical plane, like I said, nurturing matters. I wanted to add a couple things. Something I added when you asked me to talk about the body code, the original emotion code body code in Dr. Nelson's worldview, he believes we just have this lifetime. Okay. What I've discovered from my own work, working with people, is that, and as quantum physicists have told us, we exist on many timelines. So I do what I call my own version of multidimensional healing. What I mean by that, I'll check, as I'm using the body code as a guide, I'll check their current timeline, past lifetimes, parallel lives, future lifetimes, in between lives, and other things that come up. Okay, because sometimes those energies are stuck there. It's a quick cleanup. It's not like a 2-hour process. It's often in a minute or less. Do a cleanup of that. And what I find is sometimes when there's really, really stuck energies, it's because it's in other timelines. So again, I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? I got lost in my thoughts.
About the importance of, if you think that it is important to not only release that trapped energy as it pertains to heartache, but also to continue growing and improving and nurturing your existing relationships and even bringing in new relationships. Does that make us stronger in terms of this energy field?
Absolutely. So also a couple things I want to add about the importance of daily energy maintenance, having a daily energy routine. I'm working with a lot of people, so it's important I clear my field at least 2 or 3 times a day, sometimes more. But even for a person that's not a practitioner, I would recommend at minimum once a day, twice a day. Are you grounded to the earth? Are you here present? Have you cleared your fields? Because the truth is we're all connected and we can, acquire energies just walking around. So it's important to clear that. But also I want to go back what you said, besides clearing things, yes, it's often important to, do the practices and install the morphic fields of like self-love, self-responsibility, these things. This, what I'm referring to, comes from Dr. Karen Kan. Dr. Karen Kan is a medical doctor by training. She then worked into acupuncture. Now she's working more like with spiritual medicine, what I talked about earlier. So removing entities, ghosts, other types of curses, those types of energies. And what she, in addition, she was trained and certified in the emotion code, body code, but she realized she built out those systems more and has her own healing system called Topolcan healing. And one of those healing frequencies is to download and install frequencies of, like I said, self-love, self-responsibility. Because sometimes we don't have those divine blueprints, no matter how much we try, but all those can be quickly downloaded and installed. So that is another way we can strengthen our relationships, is making sure we have the divine blueprint for certain qualities so that we live, optimal and healthy lives.
I understand. And what you mentioned right now is actually something that we've all experienced. And you said about clearing out your energy, because when you're working with people, and it has happened to all of us, that suddenly we arrive at a place and there is a bad energy, and people are arguing, and people are fighting, and even if we don't know them at all, we arrive at a restaurant and we see a couple arguing, we immediately start feeling tense and start feeling that same anger, almost that same tension. And the same is true for the opposite. So I totally can appreciate what you're talking about. And then when you translate that even to larger scales, our children arriving at school, and then there's this issue going on, and a couple of kids are fighting, and then suddenly everyone's tense, and the teacher comes in, because everyone's tense, he just starts screaming at them. So it just kind of like keeps perpetuating. And the same is true for the opposite. When you meet someone who's calm, who's composed, who's and funny story, now that I'm saying this, I remember a couple of months ago when we were still living in California, My wife went out for a walk with our baby, who was at the time maybe 1 and a couple of months old, and he was throwing a tantrum for some reason, right? And this older Asian gentleman walked by. He didn't speak a word of English, but he suddenly looked at him and he showed him. He just showed him. He said, kind of like pointed like to stop and to breathe deeply and to go out. And my wife says that my son started kind of like looking at him and imitating him.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's like, he was all calm. I'm like, well, you should have brought that guy home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And your point, another piece I do, and actually I do space clearings. Okay. So I'll clear out the energies of like, I had a family member in the hospital recently. I'll energetically clear out the hospital because, a lot of things happen in hospitals, just a lot of trauma and a lot of tough stuff. Schools have very wonky energies, okay? Courthouses, jails, all institutional places, shopping malls. So, I just sometimes pick up on the energy and track it out. I was talking yesterday I was at a holistic fair locally, and a woman came. She's a real estate agent, and I told her I did space clearing. I said, have you ever been in a space, a home you're trying to sell? I said, you as a realtor know exactly what needs to go into that space to sell, right? Optimize the possibility. So, oh yeah. I said, but have you ever walked in where you just go, you need to run out? So, oh yeah. I said, okay, those would be the types of spaces I would clear. There's often something going on in the house, some stuck energies, or on the land. I do land clearings too, remotely.
I see. That's super interesting. Now, besides working with real estate, you also work with pets, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's an integral part of my practice. So I work with pets for when they bring me their pets for two main reasons. Category one is there's a change in behavior. So you have a dog or cat, been trained where to go to the bathroom, starts going all over the house. Cases like that, my first question, have you taken your pet to the vet? Get it checked out, make sure nothing infection veterinarily is going on. Often the test results come back and the vet says, we can't find anything. So after they've done their due diligence, taken their pet to the vet, know where they stand, I'll look at the energy field. The body will tell me what's locking into place, the peeing and pooing for that animal. Also, I work a lot with separation anxiety, like excessive barking, like compulsive licking, those types of unusual behaviors. Category two is people already have taken the pet to the vet, and maybe the vet does find something veterinarily going on, like maybe a growth or an intestinal blockage. I'll step in if they want and add a layer of support. So they're working with their vet, but also there can be things trapped in the field that will support the work of the vet. So those are some of the main reasons they bring their pets to me.
And now here's the funny question. Do you find that these trapped emotions and equivalents are comparable, are translatable or exchangeable between pets and humans? Because as humans, we have that ability to name something, right? We can identify it when we're angry, and we can name it anger, and we can name it heartbreak, and we can name, even joy. But a pet experiences these emotions. I'm guessing, I'm assuming that they do have all these different emotions. Not guessing, it. You can see when a dog's happy, you can see when a dog's sad, you can see all those things, but they don't have that ability to identify them. How does that make your work different? Does it at all?
Actually, no, because my session with an animal is pretty much very similar to a session with a human. Obviously, the pet's not physically talking to me, but I'm getting all sorts of information. And I'll ask the pet parent, some questions. Like I've seen a lot. I recently worked with a cat, another practitioner. She had two cats. One was 19, one was 17. The 19-year-old cat had PAX. The 17-year-old cat was going through extreme grief, like crying all night, okay? The practitioner, who's excellent in her own right, called me and said, can you work? I'm too upset. I usually work with my animals. Can you work with my cat? So I work with the cat going through grief. Again, it kind of took the edge off it. There was still a grieving process, but at least the cat was starting to eat again, calmer, and all that. So pets experience emotions. They have definitely their own emotions. And what I find very commonly, the pets will take on the emotional energies or the energies of a household. So that's very common. People bring me their pets, say, my pet X, Y, and Z. I'm doing the session and said, oh, they absorbed it from you, from your husband or your child. They go, oh, I guess I need to be more aware of my own emotions. I said, yes, in your own states, because the pets often take on things to help us out and they can get out of whack.
I see. I understand. That actually makes total sense. How can how can someone, because as almost as a rule, not a rule really, but almost as something that we've accepted, we are not as a society very much in touch with our energies. And
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, you would be looked at like you were a weird person if you started talking about this in many concepts, right? Because it's simply not something that we recognize. And I know that a lot of people can sense them. I know that a lot of people can do certain things about them. But how can the regular person who's never really been into anything like this, how can they start becoming more in tune with their energies, more aware of these things?
Okay, I think a very good first step would be grounding every morning. Like I was talking about, kind of like an energy maintenance, energy routine, something that a lot of people just aren't present. They're not in their bodies or just not present with the moment. They're thinking something they got to do tomorrow or something happened in the past. So, a very simple like grounding exercise they can do. Again, if they're open to this, imagine a divine white light, just connect with the heavens, having a divine white light come down, going through their top of the head, going all the way down their like spinal column, down their legs, down their feet, into the crystalline grid of Mother Earth. Okay, connecting to the earth, the energy of the earth. Often we're not connected to the earth. Okay, bringing those energies back up, all the way back up through the feet, through the legs, all the way to the heart, where it kind of empties in the heart space. You get the heart space from there, let it sit for about 20 seconds, come back out, go back down the legs, all the way back down to the mother crystalline grid of Mother Earth, and then all the way back up your legs, back out the top of your head, and back to the heavens. Okay? If people are open-minded, experiment with that just to be grounded and present. Often people will just feel calmer, more connected, just more present, aware of where they are. So I think that would be a good place to start. It's always, everyone will have his or her own experience. Some people will immediately notice the difference. Other people won't, but everyone's going to have his or her experience.
Yeah, I've been now that you were running through the exercise, I've been following Headspace guided meditation for a while now, and
Yeah.
there's different exercises, and one of them is about visualization, and they run a very similar visualization exercise, and I think they're incredibly powerful, and I think that a lot of the times what us as people are reactive to is just the name and the concept and saying, oh, well, energies, and just because we cannot see them, right? And we tend to not think a lot about them. But in reality, even for instance, meditation, 10 years ago, if you said that you were going to go meditate, they would look at you like some weirdo. And now it's becoming accepted because the research is out, the data is out, and it's finally becoming visible. But in reality, it's the same thing. When you talk about grounding, you talk about you just getting out of or on the contrary, getting more aware of where you're at, of your presence, of your life, of your humanity, really, and just connecting right back down. So I think that's an incredibly powerful exercise.
Yeah, real quick, here in the US, it's interesting. So I taught primarily at the college level and a few years at private schools in Asia and here in the US, private high schools. What I discovered is it's becoming more like acceptable to talk about mindfulness, meditation for elementary school kids, okay? Because they feel like, oh, we like it. And so that's interesting. So it's still something more, a little bit more tangible, I guess, less woo-woo, but that's a step forward. So I'm glad to see that because I know it really helps the kids a lot.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see a shift along those lines because while at late '90s, even the beginning of the 2000s, we were. I think that from a scientific standpoint, I think we started getting very cocky into thinking, oh, we're this close to knowing it all. And in reality is that 20 years later, we realized that, sure, we opened that door, which we thought was the last one. And in reality, that just opened millions of other doors that we couldn't see before and millions of other doors that we missed before and that we were still to explore. So the more we've been learning about certain things, the more we see that there's to be done. Just a couple of days ago in one of our previous episodes, I was talking to someone about our gut microbiome
Mm.
and how now we know the role that these little bugs play in controlling our moods, in controlling our hunger, in controlling our hormones, and basically just running our internal mechanisms. And a couple of years ago, we didn't know about that. As a matter of fact, we were very happy to keep bombarding them with antibiotics, right? And I think that the more we start going into that direction, and more we start realizing that we don't really know everything, the more that we start becoming open to all of these different kinds of things. I've worked with acupuncturists in the past. I've worked with, certain chiropractors, other types of healers. And I don't talk about a lot about this, but when I went through my own cancer journey, 2003.
Wow.
And
Okay.
while I was going through chemotherapy and radiation, and I was already in medical school, right? So I thought,
Sure.
no, I'm just going to go chemo and radiation. But my mom actually, and she does Reiki, and she does
Okay.
a couple of other
Cool.
things, right? She insisted that I see all these different people. And at some point I just went because she was insisting about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know the effect it had, but what I can tell you is that 20 something years later, I had it much better off than a lot of people who go through cancer and who go through chemotherapy, who go through radiation therapy. And, at first they told me that I probably wouldn't be able to have kids. And then without even trying, we got a very beautiful, healthy boy. And that, life wouldn't be the same. And in reality, you see that, wow, there is life after that. So I do think, and it's hard for me to say this, but I do think that there is a lot more that we don't know. I think there's a lot more in the different healing arts that we need to start embracing. I think we need to also start looking towards the past and see what our ancestors were doing, because they were onto something, as much as it pains us to accept that, despite them not having, even microscopes and CAT scans and MRIs and all these different things that we have today. They were onto something, even if it was empirically. So I think it is time to start bridging the gap. And for that, I want to acknowledge you for taking the time, for accepting the invitation, for coming over here and being so open about what you do, and so generous with your time and your knowledge with me and with our audience.
Well, thank you. I just wanted, since you brought up the issue of topic with cancer again, I do have people come to me from time to time that often say they were eating well, organic and everything, but they came on. And often there is stuff in the energy field. And maybe your listeners are familiar with that series called The Truth About Cancer. If people find themselves in that situation, just explore. Everyone chooses what's right for him or her. I think that's always very important. What they choose to go the traditional chemo route, that's it's their life, their health. Choose what's right for you. But also there's a whole set of alternatives that people want to explore.
Sure. And the truth is, we tend to be very black and white. Either I am on this side of the fence or I'm on this side of the fence. But in reality, there's no fence, and you can mix and match, and you can figure out, being seen by an oncologist in this particular case and receiving chemotherapy does not necessarily mean that you have to completely forego different other healing modalities that you can come and build an additional layer on top of, or that you should not be taking supplements, or that you should stop doing all these other approaches, or acupuncture and whatnot. In reality, these all of these things complement each other. I think they can complement each other, and I think you put it very, very well. Everyone chooses their own path. What I don't think is adequate is when, as a health professional in one field or another, you try to force people to choose your path because that's the way you are convinced about it. And I think that we just need to be a little bit more humble. I think we just need to be a little bit more open to accepting other things. And sure, sometimes options are just going to be completely quack, and that's
Sure.
also fine. It's part of the, and there we act as a guide. We act as, listen, I don't believe that this is the way we should go, and these are the risks that I see. But let's give it a shot, or keep you posted. Because if we don't do that, and again, I was just having this conversation in a very recent podcast. If you don't do that, if you don't work together with your patients to achieve that, or to let them do those things, they're still going to do them, but now they're going to hide them from you.
Yes.
And that's just going to complicate the whole thing.
Yep, absolutely. And what I've seen energy wise, some people, again, not from a logical sense, but are meant to have certain experiences in this lifetime. And, it's always about choice. The person, in my case, my clients, in your case, your patients, choose what's right for them, and in consultation, and, with all the information.
Exactly. So once again, thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show. We normally ask all of our guests towards the end of the show a couple of pieces, their top 2 or 3 pieces of actionable advice that people can take pretty much right away to start getting more in tune, to start taking advantage of what you just shared with us. And you shared one with us at the beginning to kind of like ground yourself and be more aware, more present. Do you have any other actionable piece of advice that people can really grab from this episode in order to start becoming more aware of these energy fields, these energies that surround us all?
Yeah. So again, if they go to my website for peopleandpetsenergetics.com, there's a link. If they subscribe to my free newsletter, comes out occasionally, not every day for sure. And there, as the free gift, I'll send you Donna Eden's 10-minute energy workout. So it has these grounding exercises and much more, 5 or 10 minutes, and you can choose things. So that's a great place to start. Just kind of get your feet wet and see how you feel. There's also, I include a video link to her doing these exercises, which will get you started on that path. A second thing at my site, if any of this sounds like of interest and you have something on your energetic plate and you're really stuck, I offer all new clients a complimentary 30-minute discovery session.
Oh.
Okay. They complete a short form of what's on their energetic plate. I'll set up a time to do either a phone call or if they have video technology, a Zoom call. So in 30 minutes, first 5 minutes, review what's on their energetic plate, what they've done to solve it to the point. And then I do a mini healing from about 10 to 15 minutes. I get a lot done in 10 or 15 minutes with an aspect of their issues. And then just see, they feel in, same or different. And then we can explore ways if they want to move forward to work further or not.
Wow, that's perfect. That's perfect. So thank you so much for sharing those. And that's very generous to give away, 30 minutes discovery calls. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be interested in that. For those of you listening, make sure you remember that just like with every other show, with every other episode, we are going to have all the links to what Mark just shared either in your podcast app, you just scroll to the episode's description, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just scroll down, same thing, to the episode's description. You're going to have the links directly to all those things that Mark just mentioned, as well as to the show notes and everything else. When you go to the show notes page, you'll see the video, the transcript, and everything else that we've been talking about. Mark, once again, very last question. Did you have a good time on the Highway to Health?
Oh, yeah. It was a lot of fun. I love having these free-ranging conversations where we go and just go with the flow. So thank you very much.
Not a problem. It was great having you. Everyone else, thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Dr. E and Dr. Mark Hernandez. And as always, if you have any questions about what we discussed in this episode, make sure to use the link in this episode description to ask them. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you here next week.
Thank you for listening to Dr. E's Highway to Health show, helping you learn the science of living ageless. Did you enjoy the show? Please like, share, and subscribe where you listen to podcasts. Dr. E wants to hear from you. Go to dre.show. Again, that's dre.show. Until next time, this is Dr. E's Highway to Health, helping you live ageless.